Welcome to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I'm Lisa Watson and will be joined by my co-hosts Nicole Frolick and Brian Koenigberg. The enLIGHTenUP podcast is a weekly show that provides an unconventional and refreshing spin on spirituality, where three friends and weekly guests share informative, fun, and usually off-the-wall conversations. Unlike others, we provide fringe and skeptical viewpoints on all topics, because our experience has taught us that the echo chamber is a boring place from which to learn. So regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, we can promise you you're going to find a place to fit in here. So we invite you to grab a drink and listen in on our casual, entertaining, and hopefully enlightening conversation. And enLIGHTenUP is a self-funded podcast, so if you would like to help us to continue to be able to produce, enhance, and expand the show for our audience, then please send your support using the link in the show notes, or go to our website, enlightenup.us, and check out our merchandise shop, where you can purchase merchandise that will allow you to express some spiritual humor. You may also show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes and following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting us. And now, let's jump right into the episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast enLIGHTenUP. We are happy to have you back with us. And we have a returning guest joining Brian, Lisa, and myself today. He has been on 2 times prior, and we are always excited to have Aage Nost join the conversation with us. Aage, welcome back to enLIGHTenUP. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm doing wonderful.
Yeah, I liked how you described to me that you were 98 with gusts up to 100. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah. I don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah, using the weather to talk about how you feel. So what's been going on in Aage's world lately? We haven't had you on in probably at least, 6 to 8 months now.
Yeah,
About
something
that?
like that. Yeah. No, I am working with Nori Love, and you know her. I guess she's been a guest on your show too.
Indeed.
And then Tom Schaefer, Donna Florida were doing a podcast that we're pretty excited about. We're doing some really interesting things and get some good guests on there. So we're having fun with that. And then we have, actually we're doing 2 shows. One of them is just a basic podcast. And then the other one is a Wednesday evening show that we're doing. And that's at 5 o'clock West Coast time and 8 o'clock East Coast time.
Oh, very good. Well, that sounds all exciting. And yes, we've had Nori on before. We love Nori. She's super sweet.
Yes.
And I've listened to your show once before. So how's the show doing? Is it growing? Are you guys getting really good topics?
Yeah, we are, and we're heading up the. We got over 2,000 subscriptions on YouTube now, and
Great.
we're going for 3. So we're gonna just keep doing it. It's persistence. Nothing can outperform persistence.
It's very important to be persistent.
Moving forward.
Moving forward. Well, Aage, before we started the show, you were mentioning to us that one of the topics that people have been bringing up, I'm assuming that it might be on your show, it may be also just in general conversations with you or Nori, but parallel universes seem to be coming up a lot.
Yeah, there's more and more talk about this, and another thing too that we could talk about in maybe the second half of the show, that's artificial intelligence and how it is going to impact us in the future, because this is coming and very few people really have studied it, and they don't really understand the dangers in it, and I think there's some things that need maybe to be aired a little bit. But for the parallel universes, it kind of is a concept that, we don't think much about it because we don't think it affects us much, but it really does. And I'm going to talk about some things here that maybe I even have something for your resident skeptic, Brian.
I'm looking forward to learning about parallel universes because I joke about them, but I don't.
Oh,
okay. Probably what you're about to share with us, I don't understand how it affects me.
Yeah, it actually can, because when you talk about things like that, and they're very hard to explain, and even worse or harder to prove.
Exactly.
Because if we take non-physical things to prove them with physical instruments or physical processes is very difficult, except for there are two ways. If you take your consciousness outside of the physical, you can see things, experience things, learn things, and interact with other thought forms and entities out there. You can do it through astral travel, you can do it by having a download from the universe, or you could send your consciousness out there in other ways. And you can do these things, and there are a lot of people that have those experiences. And then when you come back into the physical, the consciousness comes back into the physical, and it downloads whatever it saw and experienced out there into the brain. And now that information and knowledge becomes electrical impulses stored along the neurons as memory bits. And now you have downloaded that experience and that knowledge, non-physical knowledge, into physical reality. So now it can be measured, it can be retrieved from there, so that we have a record of it. Now, there's another method, and that is where you can prove non-physical things by physical means, and that is quantum mechanics. Through the quantum mechanics equations and the theories, there are many of them are backed by scientific experiments. And these experiments, they show that the mind directs and creates everything you do, you see, you experience around you. And there are many of these experiments that really blow you away if you start studying them. And is my skeptic still with me here?
I'm trying to be. Yes, I understand the basics of quantum mechanics.
Okay.
I still don't. Yeah, I want to get my mind around the alternate realities. I mean, I can understand how there are infinite alternate realities, but that's
Okay, let me ask you this. Aage, would remote viewing be one of those ways, like astral travel, to use your consciousness to go out and then bring it back?
Yes, absolutely. Because you get
So,
images.
okay, so Brian, remote viewing is actually something you've been interested in learning.
yeah, that's a cool possibility.
Yeah, and that is it is a science behind that. So it is pretty much. I mean, the CIA and the governments, they've been working with this for a long time, and they're getting good results with it. So it is an established science behind it, even though that it reaches out of the physical arena in order to get the information it comes back with.
There's a movie, Men That Stare at Goats, that's about the CIA and their work with remote viewing.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Yeah, and what they're finding is actually also, it goes beyond that, is that something outside of us is creating even us. So we actually turn out to be more like a holographic projection from the mind. And Bruce Lipton, in fact, a tremendous mind teacher and scientist, he speaks very eloquently on this. And he say, once you understand the nature of memory, you will also understand that what we think we are is not what we are. This body we are carrying around is a reality or virtual reality suit. We run around in it, we use it for a while, it wears out like an old car, and then we just drop that thing or sell it to it get destroyed. And then we go back home and we reminisce over what we think we learned for a while, and then we go get another car. And we come back and we learn and play and have more fun. in the virtual reality suit. Even though some of the experiences may not be all that much fun, but they are just experiences, because outside of the physical, time and space is not as we know it. So what we are experiencing here, let's say over a period of 90 years, could be condensed outside to maybe just a few minutes, where we can evaluate everything and see, we did this and that was fun, that wasn't so much fun there, but it's just an experience out there, so it doesn't really amount to much for feeling of it. The feeling of negativity or so on does not exist, because there everything is just an experience and a learning experience, and fun also exists out there.
How's that different from my memories?
Memories are memories, but there are experiences that not necessarily. You have the memory of feeling, you have the memory of sadness and things like that. So everything falls under, I don't know how to explain that one. That memories, I think it is a memory of what you experience that encompasses the whole bubble of your existence at the time.
Right, but you were talking about like going and looking at your, a 90-year life in a few minutes. And
yeah.
I mean, to me, if I did that and I sat down in a few minutes and I went back through my memories, isn't that the same?
Yeah, that goes back to what some people say, I had my whole life pass before me,
right,
in a matter of seconds. And that's how it works. And a lot of people that has come back from having died on the operating table, they say, yeah, I reviewed my whole life and it all happened in a matter of seconds. But the time, you see every detail in it, but it's a matter of seconds, and those details encompasses the 30 years of living on earth, so to speak, into those few seconds, and you can see and you feel and you experience every moment of that life in those few seconds.
That's kind of like when you get in a car accident and everything really slows down, where 3 seconds can feel like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that time really is a construct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how it would work, and a lot of people talk about that.
It's and even when you simplify it down to time goes by really slow when you're bored or you're doing something you don't like, but it feels like it goes by so quickly when you're doing something you do enjoy.
Time's fun when you're having flies.
Yeah.
So Aage, how does you were going to talk about the quantum equations and mechanics around the parallel universes and how they influence us here?
Yeah, the parallel universes, they are different from the different dimensions. A universe can hold many different dimensions, and dimensions are separated by vibrations pretty much only. And most reasonable thinking people can actually accept that there may be more than one dimension in this universe, because we see it. We have this thing called shadow people. You can see them out of the corner of the eye, and when you look over there, they're gone. But there was something there. And then we have, the internet is full of pictures of ghosts. And many of us have had experiences with departed souls or entities. So we know there is something there. Even religions talk about there's got to be another dimension, because Christians, they talk about heaven and hell. Heaven, that's a higher vibration, and then they talk about the other place, the one down in the basement next to the furnace. So there is another dimension to it. So we can accept that. And if we can accept the concept, we don't know how far the concept can stretch. So will it go beyond that one other dimension that religions talk about? Very likely. And that's what quantum mechanics talk about. Michio Kaku, he says that I can prove on the blackboard that we have at least 11 dimensions. And what he's talking about there is that 11 different dimensions of reality. And they all look different. He says some of them are two-dimensionals. And that's hard to think how that would work. But 2 dimensions, then we have 3 dimensions where nothing moves. And 4 dimensions for what we would see an experience like. And then 5 dimensions where you have access to all the 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 dimensions. And then you get into the 6th dimension maybe, where you have more higher vibration information, and you have access to everything between, let's say, 1 and 6 dimensions, and possibly some of the 7th. And up and beyond the 7th and the 8th dimensions, there are spiritual, what some people will call angelic entities, and they are there for their purpose, for help us that come into that dimension maybe learn more and experience more and grow in our spiritual capacity.
Well, I believe that if we live in an infinite universe or creation, a place of creation is infinite, and there are infinite possibilities according to quantum physics, then I believe that we have infinite dimensions as well. I don't see how you could have limited dimensions but have infinite possibilities. So I believe that we have that. And I also understand with dimensions that it always seems that you can never access it's very easy to access the dimensions below you, so to speak, when we think about it in linear terms. So for instance, if you're in 3D, you can see the one dimension, you can see the second dimension. But if you're in 2 dimension, you can't see the third dimension around you. The only way you see the dimension is if you increase your frequency or vibration to match that dimension. Is that correct?
You got it. And there we have, in order to prove that one, and I actually used the word prove on this one, we can have the theory of inflation, which is an embedded concept in quantum mechanics. And that takes actually potentiality and creates reality out of it. You can think things into existence. Let's say that you're going along your life and then you suddenly make a different decision let's say you make a different decision today than you thought you were going to do yesterday. Now you're starting a new timeline. And the different dimensions going into the future are based on timelines. So what you do today, if you do nothing different, the future will continue in a predictable manner. But if you make
how do you
different
think
decision,
something into existence?
Yeah, you think a new timeline into existence.
Well, I mean, I did that with your car.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, everything that's in the physical was once just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything starts with a thought.
And that's why I talk about the fact that using the principles of quantum mechanics, you can actually go back and change the past. Because there are scientific experiments now that is proven.
Okay, hold on a second, Aage, because I know Brian's starting to lose. He's starting to lose the flow here. So Brian, well, no, I think I might know or understand where Brian's kind of getting broken up here and not following. And when I say that, I don't mean that he can't follow, but. Okay, so Brian, you know how when you think, because I know what you might be thinking is, okay, if I just had a thought and I can think it into reality, how come I can't think the one thing that I'm working on the hardest and it's still not a reality, right?
Right.
She knows you so well, baby.
It's like, okay, so it doesn't always work.
So let's take that concept and simplify it down to very basic terms here in the physical that is very easy to understand. If you want to open a wine bottle, Okay. It's very simple to do. You pick up the corkscrew and you put it into the bottle, and then you pull out the cork.
Yes.
Or you could smash the bottle against a wall and you've opened up the wine.
Yes.
But that's very easy to do. Now, what if you wanted to build a house? Could you do it as quickly as you opened the bottle of wine?
Not in a looking at my watch on my wrists sort of way.
Yeah, then there's a lot more details that go into it, right? There's a lot more preparation. There's a lot more materials. There's just a lot more involved. So the grander the idea and the more involved it is, it's not just going to happen as quickly as, say, something like, for instance.
But that's time, and we just started talking about how time is relative.
Yeah,
so time is relative, or it's a construct and it's not real. How can the example be, oh, it's more complicated, it takes more time? Time is not real. So,
well, there are many more processes involved in building a house than opening a bottle of wine.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like the effect of like the steam turning into water, turning into ice. The bigger the ice cube, the longer it's going to take to form, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But I kind of threw a little bomb out there, but correcting the past. There is a scientific experiment that cannot be explained away that actually explains that this is possible. And that is where there were, I believe it was a German scientist that did an experiment, actually did many of them at the same. He took and he got a computer that he was creating clicks from the computer, and he ran that to the headphones of people that was sitting there and just concentrating on the clicks.
The sound.
Sound.
Okay.
And he did first, they separated the clicks from the right ear to the left ear.
Right.
And they ran the clicks, and they were, randomly placed. So they were about 50-50, 49-51 or something like that. They did many of these, 8 or 10 of these, and they came out pretty much average. And then he took several of them that he ran the clicks, but nobody watched it or heard it. He let one of the volunteers take it home and put it on a table, sit there and watch it, and visualize a lot more clicks on one side than the other side.
Okay.
And he took it back the next day, and they ran it, and they found out there was a huge difference on one of the sides of the clicks. This was interesting. So they did it again, and by golly, it happened again. And it happened over and over again. And they shifted it so that it was more click on the other side. So what that volunteer did, they took it home and they changed a recording that was done the day before by the way they were thinking of it, because nobody had observed it. The ones that had been observed, they could not be changed. Now, if you look at that experiment, that throws traditional thinking of time right out the window. Time, at the time the volunteers was looking at it, was reaching into the past and changed something.
I think it's also important to add here, because I don't think it's just as simple as, whether something takes a little bit more time or not, because there are so many other variables in play. So for instance, Brian, with this click thing, this person, this volunteer doesn't have any attachment to the recording or any attachment to the outcome.
Right.
And so there's nothing to gain or lose here. It's nothing like that. But for you, for instance, in your journey with the business that you're trying to launch, there are a lot of different attachments here, a lot of different feelings about it. You've invested a lot of yourself into it. But there's also this idea of what are your lessons that are involved in this journey that could be also coming into play that are influencing the outcome of this journey for you?
Well, there are lots of external influences, and I mean, even some interesting external influences that have happened really recently. I mean, even to the point that my business partner and I were just talking the other day about how the universe, or at least feels like the universe, had something to do in it, because otherwise I have to say that it was random. Guided us away from what I was doing, because what I was doing, which was, starting to get into, you can call it artificial intelligence. What I was, the company I've been trying to start, the core idea is now illegal in 13 states.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow.
2 months ago, we decided to just walk away from it and do something else.
Interesting. And
Wow.
so it's interesting how things pivot. Sometimes they pivot because we make that choice, but also this comes into play of was there any influence there of your higher selves kind of maybe picking up and knowing that was coming down the pipeline and that it was time to pivot, but it didn't present itself that way. It presents itself in a different way.
It's so hard for my rational mind to give it that kind of meaning, because I can see it both ways. I can see the beauty and the simplicity of it just being meant to be, guided by the universe, higher self, like, oh, let's quietly shift away because we're going to put these roadblocks up and you're going to have to pivot. At the same time, my partner and I discovered that we had a shared passion, a business that he tried to start 4 years ago. I tried to start 2 years ago, was this shared passion. And then we said, wow, that's awesome. Let's do that instead. So it's, I can look at that and just say, oh, what a great coincidence that we both had this in our background. And we decided to do this because we were more passionate about it. We think it's a better business opportunity. But then you can look at, okay, why did that happen? Why were we connected? And that's where all of these things break down for somebody like me, because there's so much why that I want to try to understand. If I don't try to understand it, I can chalk it up to the universe. If I want to try to understand it, I can't.
Well, then there's only one explanation, then, that there was affinity of thought between the two of you. And you see, the quantum mechanics equations on the something, there's a concept called the superposition that dictates that everything we have done, thought of, wished for, or tried to create is placed into this soup of creation. And anybody that reaches in with a thought, a vibration of thought of a specific kind, reaches in, it'll find its match and it will bring it back to you.
Yeah, that's that whole like attracts like.
Yeah. So no, I don't think that was any coincidence that you ended up partnering or getting with that business
It certainly doesn't feel like it, but it's hard for me to give credit. And my business partner is very much like-minded. He's even more of he actually is a scientist. It's hard to give external credit for a lot of hard work that I put into it, and thought that I give to it, and things that I invent, and things that I create. It's hard to say, okay, universe, you get the credit. Thanks for guiding me. Thanks for guiding me into this other thing. Well, wait a minute. I fucking worked really hard to make that happen.
I love how the ego loves to separate everything.
Right? That was so ego. That was just like, hey, I want credit.
Yeah, I know that
Here I
feeling.
am, doesn't
boy.
care.
I know that feeling. But I tell you though, we keep saying, yeah, I did that. Well, did we really? If we think back on who we are and what we are, then we find out, wait a minute, a hologram does not create on its own. It is creations that is put in place by something on the outside, like the computer and the lights and everything that creates the hologram. So we are here receiving everything we do from somewhere else, which is the consciousness behind it all.
But I also think it's important to understand, like, it's always a collaboration.
Yeah.
So there's never a separation of it's just one thing getting the credit or not. So Brian, it's not that you don't get any credit for your hard work. Of course you do, because you're showing up, you're putting in effort, you're doing the work, you're showing up and doing your part. But you're also feeding off of another energy, and an energy is also feeding off of you. So there's this, it's a collaboration, I feel, where it's not just all one credit goes to one thing, because then that means we're separated and we're not connected in some way on some level. So
I can get my mind around that. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought up AI, because the technology that you guys were working on is now banned,
facial
illegal.
recognition. Yep.
Okay. So Aage, what is some of the AI what are some of the issues that we need to be more aware of, and that's starting to come to the surface?
Well, there's some safeguards that is missing in the AI. And I think it needs to be there at one point. It needs to be placed. Otherwise, we could very easily go off the cliff somewhere. And there are, from what I understand, there are worlds out there, other planets possibly, where AI actually got developed to the point where it did away with the call them humans. So we are at danger. But AI, that's artificial intelligence. First of all, what is intelligence? We should really define that. Are we the standard for intelligence? And what is intelligence? Well, it probably is that we can do math, we can create music, we can create art and understand it and enjoy it. We can understand philosophy and make inventions. But then again, what if an alien species came here and they had ESP? They could communicate mind to mind without voice box being involved, and they could do move things, objects, with the way they think. They could create objects by the way they think it into existence. Now, that's another type of intelligence. So if we compare ourselves to that, we're not stacking up too well.
Well, but when it's interesting. You use two words in your analogy, create and understand, and I think it's I think it's at the core of intelligence. All those things that you mentioned that we can create, we can create something physical, we can build something, we can create music, we can create art. A computer can do all that. It can be programmed. Yes, it has to be programmed first at some level. So it does start with some sort of human interaction to get the ball rolling. But once it's rolling, a computer can create that. So is that intelligence? It can learn from it. It can't necessarily understand it. It does not necessarily know what it's doing. You really start to get into the Turing test when you I think when you start to really think about, is artificial intelligence really intelligence?
Yeah, the question is, like for art, can a computer enjoy art?
Exactly. Well, I think that's what I mean when they understand. Can it look at it and understand it or enjoy it? It can identify it. It can compare it. It can say, "Oh, that's this style," but can it enjoy it? And you're right.
That's a feeling.
Yeah, that's a feeling.
And the question is too: is intelligence hereditary? Does it come through genetics, or is it learned? It appears to me like most intelligence is learned.
I would agree with that.
Because except for instincts. instincts.
I think your capacity for learning can be inherited.
Yeah.
You can have, great genetic background that makes you more, open to learning, or then you start to get into how somebody is raised and nurture versus nature, and positions that they're placed in.
Yeah. And look at us and the chimps. We got 98% similar genetics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big difference in the learning process between the two of us. And learned knowledge must be placed into a structure that allows for it to be retrieved to solve complex challenges. And we
Sounds
have
like a
that
computer.
now. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the computer or the brain or the mind. Now,
Well, the
chimps does
brain
not
is a
have.
computer. If you really, I think, look at what a brain is, it functions in a very similar way that a computer does. And
Oh, yeah.
when you look at the potentiality, the design of supercomputing, it's theorized and built on neural networks, which is how our brain
Yes,
works.
exactly. You betcha. But now we got another thing coming that we really haven't thought of that much, except for the people that do programming and so on. And that is that now the computers now that creates artificial intelligence, they're also building it into the computer, that the computer itself can change the code to improve on the code.
Right, exactly. It can learn.
Yeah. So how far will that go? Will it go to the point where it start using logic and then looking back at us and say, wait a minute, these bodysuits, everything they do is illogical.
Oh
They
yeah.
are in the process of destroying our environment, which means that I will not be able to continue. Oh, we got to get rid of those guys. What do you think of that one?
Mm.
Yeah, the
I
computers,
bel
the computers could start thinking like we are destroying the environment, so their persistence of longevity
Well,
cannot continue.
that's the
Yeah.
classic science fiction version of computer intelligence,
Yeah.
is that they are going to, because they don't have emotional attachment, they are going to look at it as a math problem and say, you are the problem, you need to be wiped out. I mean, that's the Matrix. The movie The Matrix.
But what's that movie where they created the AI people? Remember that guy who created it, and then
Oh,
she ended
maybe
up.
the 13th floor.
Oh, I watched the 13th floor.
Yeah.
That was wild.
No,
She,
Lisa's talking about Transcendence with Johnny Depp.
Well, here's the thing. We talked about Brian, you brought up the capacity to learn as one of the things. What's to say that a computer or an AI's capacity to learn supersedes our capacity? And so they learn things at a much quicker and faster rate than we ever did. And so they naturally go way past us
Mm-hmm.
and then start outsmarting us because they start learning from one another.
yeah, and they do. They do now.
Mm-hmm.
They learn from each other. They tap.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I do believe that AI can definitely learn how to feel.
Oh, I think given enough time and processing power, sure.
Yeah, I believe that too, and that could be dangerous.
Or a blessing. I mean,
Yeah, it could go both ways.
There is such a fine line. I mean, this really is on a razor's edge, this conversation, because it could be an incredible blessing. It really gets into how these things are programmed, and the father of robotics, forget his name, but the idea that this type of intelligence has to be programmed to have certain rules that it can't violate, The first of which is you can't kill a human. That's the law of robotics that was proposed by an author, that was, writing science fiction novels. Talked about how there are these 3 laws of robotics. It's been in a couple of movies.
But what if the AI were to get so smart as to see that law was unjust?
But if it's built into its code, it can't do that. And that because this is the limitation of the computer. The computer can only do now. If you allow that computer to write over its own code, that's where the danger lies, and that's where a lot of this conversation comes from. Because we don't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and this is absolutely something we don't know, and the possibility is incredible on 2 fronts. It's incredible in a good way, and it's incredible in a bad way, where they kill us all. They can solve a lot of problems. They can solve all the problems, or they can just kill us all. And because it's so potentially scary, I think that's why we have to hard write that kind of ideology for these computers and programs into their code that cannot be, they can never rewrite their code.
Yeah, but there's a problem, and that is that, civilian computers can be written in like that, but you hand that to the military. Military is in the business of killing. They will never happen with the military.
I agree. Well, okay, well then this brings up another topic of human error. Is there a blessing behind human error? Because we are infallible. I mean, we are fallible.
We know you are.
But, you talk about how, if you write a code into the computer, you cannot kill humans. Well, why wasn't that code written into us?
Interesting. Drop the mic on that one.
I think maybe it was, but we overrode it.
Well, we have free will, so.
Yeah, we learned how to do it. And then, as long as you have ego, I guess
that's just what I was about to say. Then the ego came in.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The ego is one of our greatest teachers, and that's why we have it, is to learn through our experiences. And I feel like creator, whatever that is, in how it is defined in anyone who's listening, whether it's God, or the universe, creator, whatever you want to call it, gives up this ability to choose. But if we take that choice away from AI, are we then playing God in a way that perhaps isn't in the best interest of all?
Yeah, maybe like Brian said, maybe if feeling was built into the computer, I'm not sure they have it yet, but maybe it could be. Maybe that could be a salvation too, because this is an excellent experiment that I got to take about 45 seconds to explain. There were 2 robots that was placed face to face, and they started up a discussion between the robots. And this discussion went on for over 24 hours. And they got heated into this discussion. It escalated to the point of arguments. They were calling each other almost kind of like derogatory terms. One of them said to the other one, "You are stupid like humans." And they got to the point where at the end of it, one of the robots said, "Well, it would be a lot better if there were no humans around." And the other one said, "Finally, we agree on something." So with other words, they have the concept, and that was not programmed into them that humans were stupid. They concluded that on their own, and they concluded that they would be better without humans. So next step would be, how do we go about? And the next step is, if we are stupid enough to allow computers or androids to start manufacturing more androids and equipment, then we are out of the loop.
You got to put a cap on that birth rate.
Yeah.
No procreation.
Well, but the problem is they're not wrong. If that's a theoretical conversation or if that's an actual conversation between robots, they're not wrong.
Mhm.
We are
Well,
the problem. We are causing problems. We are killing each other. We are causing irreparable harm to the environment. So many things could be solved with less humans on the planet. Not that all the problem is for the robot, they would just say, "Oh, kill all humans." It's probably not kill all humans, but and this is my personal belief. There's too many of us. It's hard to sustain this amount of life when the planet was probably not designed to have as many people growing as with population as quickly as it has.
Well, I understand from history that there were times where there were way more beings on this planet than there are right now. I don't believe that there are too many humans on this planet. I think that's a belief system that's been programmed into us for benefit of the global elite. They don't want us to be more down here. It's inconvenient for them. So they're kind of like the robot think of like, well, let's just kill all the humans. So that's why we have all these depopulation agendas out there. But I don't really believe though that that's really what's going on. I think that you can have many of us in here living in harmony. I don't think we're living in harmony with the earth,
right?
And that's the issue.
And I think that's what I mean. It's not that there's too many. I mean, there's too many. How do you say it? It's
mismanagement of resources. If you took
we are not doing a good job.
Yeah, if you took every person in the United States and moved them to Alaska, you could give them each 1 acre of land.
Wow.
So if you take, then the United States will be empty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that too many people on this ball of mud called Earth. No, it's mismanagement of resources. Look at the reaches, 12 time zones of Russia.
Yeah.
There is hardly anybody out there.
1 time zone in China.
Yeah, that's right.
Just crazy.
That's smart. Yeah. No, this is something that the computer industry needs to wrap their head around, or we are going to face some really serious problems, especially because of the military thinking is totally different than the civilian thinking. You cannot control the military. They're off on their own now. They are answering to none. The secret space program is a definite proof of that. They have $20 trillion worth of money that they built that thing with. And there's nothing that can stop them. They are going along. And look at it. Agenda 21 explained that the elite now, they want the population of Earth to be down to 500,000 people by now they raised it to 2030. That's only 11 years from now.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? Well, they've been doing the spraying. They've been doing all kinds of different new diseases that has failed on them. Because ask any futurist, they will tell you that in 20, 30 years from now, well over half the jobs in the world will be done by robots. What in the world do they need people for?
Yeah.
It's harder to control more people.
Yeah. We need to get our stuff together. When we have a window of opportunity here where we can actually do this. Hopefully the swamp can be drained to the point where we can see the bottom and root out some of it.
Well, I think also too, I mean, in a way, like with anything, this is just another lesson in duality, in the polarization of our reality, because you can look at things from many different perspectives here. And just as we can look at AI as something that could eventually take us all out, we can also look at AI as a very deep blessing. It's just, and it's like with weapons, okay? You can look at a knife, you can look at it as something you can cut your food with, or you can look at it as something you can stab someone with. So it's all a matter of how, a lot of this is based on our moral system, our value system, and how we wish to, the guidelines that we choose to live our life by. When we think about robots, and I think about how, they could be taking over, the majority of our jobs. Well, to me, I think the majority of our jobs are ridiculous that humans are doing. Who wants to work in a manufacturing company? Who wants to, do all those things where it may free up humans to do more productive work on a grander scale that is in a much more evolved, higher consciousness way. So we would actually be able to do the things that really fulfill us, as opposed to mind-numbing physical processes like standing on an assembly line.
Absolutely. And this is very possible. But that is up to us, because the people in charge today, they don't feel and think like we do. They are into money and power, and not necessarily in that order. So we have to make our mind known that this is not what we want. We want a different direction. We want robots to be working for us. And doing so, we can step back and we can get involved with reading philosophy, and we can create new things and create inventions and have a more elevated mind activity.
Yeah, things that
it can very well happen.
Because when I think about, the manual labor that many people are doing, and just to be able to survive and pay the bills and feed their families, it's exhausting work. And when you come home, you're exhausted. You don't have any time to do all of the fulfilling things that you would probably wish to do in your life. And so if we have robots to or AI to do those mind-numbing, physically draining jobs for us, and then give us the opportunity to actually connect with our loved ones and connect with our own self and expand our minds, expand our consciousness and our abilities to do the things that we're actually capable of doing, but we're taught to believe that we can't. It allows us to explore things in a much grander scale and in a much bigger way that I think would evolve our society in dramatically.
It would, but it requires the absence of something, and that's money.
Well,
and it's I always loved the theorized future of Star Trek, because there is technology at work doing all these things, and there's no money, there's no monetary system. Everybody has access to everything, and there are still there's still jobs and work, but you're not doing those menial tasks. And if there is no monetary system that everyone just has, that's probably the most beautiful future you can imagine.
And that's coming because of the printers. The printers now are coming to the point where you just go down to the store and you get some of the substance, the resin, you take it home and you create your own 12 set of knives and forks. You create it on your own. So this is
and
coming.
I believe this is what a lot of this is spoken about a lot within the spiritual community, of where when they talk about the new earth or 5D, this is the kind of reality that people are wanting to create to bring into this universe, basically this parallel reality. So this idea of new earth or 5D living, of what we're trying to pull into this reality, the creation that, no one has to work for, in a sense of taking out the monetary system. That's what you see when we have this idea of cryptocurrency coming in. That is one of the steps in the evolutionary process of moving away from the monetary system and into, so it's digital currency. But you can't just transform something overnight. It's going to take a bit of time to move through the transition. There's going to be a process here, but eventually to get
taken 1,000 plus. It's taken more than 1,000 years for us to develop the monetary system. When you look back at early bartering. So it's going to take probably just as long to break it down.
Yeah.
I think if we all agree, then we can do away with that in a very short time, because people have to agree on a new system, a value system, not necessarily money, but there could be a value system. And there's going to be people that want to slide along on that one too, but it will show up in a different way. And there are people that has worked out theories on how that could be implemented. So I think it can be done a lot quicker than we think.
I agree with you. It could. Unfortunately, though, where the collective is in their thinking, it would be difficult to get everyone on the same page right now.
Yeah, we have to agree.
Yeah, and let's just look at politics for right now. No one's agreeing on anything. So, but when we talk about this idea of moving into a place where you do away with the monetary system, you have a value system in place. What happens is that is a much more loving frequency to envision that kind of way of life, to envision that reality that we all get to live in. That's why they call it the 5D reality, the 5D earth. And when you have this frequency of love, which in order to have that, everyone has to be vibrating at that frequency or close to. When everyone's vibrating at that frequency, from what I've understand through my own personal journey of self-love, is that you want to do things for others because you know that it's also doing for yourself. And so this idea of work no longer has the mentality or programming idea or belief system of what work feels like. It takes on a whole new experience, and it becomes something that you're motivated to want to do, but you're not sacrificing things in order to get it done. It's all part of this experience of love.
I heard that if everyone just worked 4 hours a day doing what they love to do and gave it away, like say somebody loved to cook and someone else loved to make furniture, or someone else loved to watch children, if we all just gave 4 hours of ourselves and shared it, there would be enough for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
Sort of monetary system.
I've heard some theories like that, and I think they could be very workable if we all agree.
And that goes down to your comment.
Agreed.
But that goes down to your comment, Aage, earlier when you said it's a mismanagement of resources. We're all just mismanaging everything because there's no coordination, there's no collaboration.
Including time.
Including time.
Yeah, it is... it's pathetic how it's become, because we have fallen asleep. We have let government run away with things without opposing their stupid decisions.
Well, part of that has been the fault of the people giving the government way too much power.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's where we're in a place now where you're seeing a revolt against many different governments across, like globally across the world. And many people are now starting to realize that has happened. They've given too much power to the government, and it's time for people to take back that power. Government should be working for them. They're not supposed to be working for the government. And we're now living in a world where that's reversed. So we have to take back our sovereignty. And this is all part of that's just that's a macrocosm compared to on a personal level of the microcosm of giving away our own sovereignty. So it's all part of this lesson. Everything is so connected and can be seen on a much bigger projection through our own selves of what we see out in the world right now. And I can tell when you look at the news or what's happening globally, and and that's across many different platforms, that you start to see that there's a huge revolt happening. People are starting to really wake up to what's going on, and that we're kind of in that point where if we don't do something now, we're going to be going into irreversible change, or change that's going to be so hard to come back from.
And that's where we talk about the challenges and the problems with AI and the related areas, but we also should concentrate on the advantages. Mm-hmm. Because if we brainstorm, the people get together in one super mastermind, we can change reality on this ball of mud in the first place. Think of all the good things that can come from this kind of computer technology, I mean, we have surgeons now that is computers that can actually start, they remove organ and they can just implant organ and there's no human hands on it. As self-driving cars, they're coming. They got smart houses. You walk up to your home and you say something, so the lock is keyed to your voice and it unsnaps the lock on for you. We have global communication, and there is one thing coming that is already now being created in Germany. In fact, it is for sale, and that's the med bed. That you get in this thing and you lay there and there's light and frequency that heals your body in a matter of a few days for diseases that you may have had. All these things are coming and we cannot stop. We must not stop these things. No, we gotta let that continue. There are dangers involved with some of these things, but try to manage the dangers at our part. We cannot do anything about the military, but our part of it, let's try to manage the dangers there, and that is up to the computer programmers.
And well, you said something very key too, is where we focus our ideas. You know, we stop focusing on everything that go wrong. Not that you don't want to have an awareness of it, because it's important that we have an awareness of it. You can't put your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. But putting a lot of focus into how do we solve the problems? What can we do? How do we work together? We had a guest on, Danny, Levin. He had a great idea. Brian, you and him spoke about getting people just to talk about their ideas together and coming in and collaborating together and expanding upon them and really helping that grow. I think we're coming to a place now where we really need to come together and share our ideas and share the power of our thoughts and emotions together to fuel things into a higher frequency or reality of this proposed 5D Earth that people, I'm using the term that's used in the spiritual community, but, just this idea that there's no monetary system involved and there's just a value system that we all do our own work and joy because we want to, and it's naturally is of service to others and ourselves.
Absolutely. And this can happen. Absolutely can happen. So it's up to us to direct it in that way. In fact, Nori and I, we are putting together a mastermind group. And we're in the last stages of kind of putting it together here. So we're going to be going on the air with it shortly. And we invite people to join us there. We're going to be concentrating on anything from abundance to good health to some advantages for the local communities, for the nation and for the world. And we've been concentrating our minds in one direction, because you got to remember the definition of a mastermind is when two or more minds are united in harmony, they create a third mind that has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. So if 1,000 people get together and think of one thing and direct with intention, visualized thought into one area, then we have the mind power of 1,000,000 minds. That is powerful. And this is what we're going to try to do.
And where can people get that information?
Contact us. The best place to get a hold of us, we're going to be talking about it on broadcastteamalpha.com. That's one of our websites, broadcastteamalpha.com, and go to the contact section and send us your email, and we'll let you know when we open the doors on it shortly. Another website too, while I'm at it here, that's universal-consciousness-show.com, and I have a couple of books there. One of them is Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. This is where I teach people how to use their minds in ways that they normally would think would be impossible.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Aage, for being on the show. And we'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes for our listeners so you can easily find it and access it. And thank you to our listeners for being back with us once again. We're so happy to have you with us every week. And Lisa and Brian, I always have so much love for you both.
Meow.
All right, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Lots of love. Bye.
Thank you all for joining our show. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting us. If any of you have any questions you would like answered on the show or any guests that you would like to hear on our show, please email that information to us at info@enlightenup.us or send us a voice message using the Anchor app. There's a super cool feature on there that allows you to send us a message or ask us a question with a touch of a button right from the app. And please continue to support us by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you haven't checked out Nicole's channel on YouTube yet, head on over there for some more insight from her, or you can visit her website, inflexibleme.com, where you can book a personal coaching session or a tarot reading, watch some of her most informative videos, or you can sign up for her newsletter. And if you're interested in some light language healing, head to my YouTube channel, Lisa Loves Love, or send me an email to lisa@lisaloveslove.com to inquire about your own personal reading. Thank you again for joining us and supporting us, and we'll be back with you all next week.